Hello Insiders, I've got a special guest joining us today. His name is Philip Mckernan. So Philip is a coach who basically coaches entrepreneurs and business leaders around the world. He helps people get clear on who they are and where they need to go. He helps them transition in their personal and professional lives so people feel aligned in all areas of life. Philip believes who and what we do off the ice has a huge impact on our results on the ice. In the most recent times, he has worked with the Canadian Olympic team, the Pentagon, and has shared the stage with high-profile speakers like Richard Branson. Philip is a best-selling author and now filmmaker with his first documentary called Give and Grow, which he will be releasing this summer. The documentary explores how the gift of giving makes us feel more worthy and alive. It also explores the science behind the impact of giving on our emotional well-being and our mental health and our physiology, as well as our business. Philip, just want to say welcome to the Success Insider show.
Cool. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Really glad to have you on today. So first question I've got for you, first of all, since you're on a show called Success Insider, what is success to you?
Well, I think success to me is, I think it's more of a feeling than it is from an intellect. I mean, I spent most of my time, my previous life, if you like, or previous parts of my life, monitoring and assessing my success based on what I achieved. And I was very good at setting goals. And unfortunately, I was very, very good at achieving them. And I say unfortunately because the goals I was setting weren't necessarily an expression of who I am. They were basically external goals that I thought intellectually it would bring me happiness and success. And a feeling of success and being successful. But I was successful on paper, but I wasn't satisfied within the context and the confines of my own life. Now, in more recent times, I define success more in terms of a feeling. So if I'm at peace, I've got peace of mind, I feel good about who I am and what I'm doing, I feel really, really successful. And I find that the more I do that, the more in that space I am, the more the so-called external factors such as money and materialistic items or whatever start to show up, in slightly more of an abundance mentality, if you like.
Okay, sure. So I take it it's been one hell of a journey for you to really get aligned with your own truth. I mean, could you give a little essence to, your story so far?
Yeah, and again, I like the fact you said so far because it's continuing, and I certainly don't want to come across as the guy who either comes across as complacent or complacent within my own skin. I mean, where do I start? I mean, I think the biggest challenge for me and a lot of people is actually just getting in touch with what is really going on today. In other words, if I go back, say, 6 or 7 years ago, I wasn't in a particularly good place. I didn't really like who I was. I was mixing up confidence and self-worth. I thought I was good at what I did. So therefore, I like who I am, which just wasn't the case. And I kept telling myself that this is good. I'm building equity in a business that I wasn't really passionate about, but that's okay because when I have enough financial freedom, then I can go and do what I love. And sounds like a great strategy, but that's the problem. It's a strategy. It's an intellectual approach to an emotional challenge. The emotional challenge was I wasn't fucking happy. I wasn't enjoying what I was doing. I wasn't getting nurtured by what I was doing. And I was executing my talent in business, but I wasn't honoring my gift. And my gift is something that lies much deeper, much more personal. And in essence, I think our gifts are all around how we impact other people in this world.
Okay, you've mentioned the talent versus gift. Let's delve slightly deeper into that because it's powerful, I find, because I've watched a lot of interviews with you. So what can we really do to really find and be aligned with our gift?
Well, I think, again, it's a lot of the questions are around what can we do? And to me, it's more about who are we to begin with. It's about who are you? And it's less about what we do in the next. Like I was on the phone call, a coaching call this morning with a client, and she says, okay, what do I do with this? And I said, well, sometimes we just need to sit with what's been uncovered. So to me, a lot of people are walking this earth and they're executing their talents every single day. So people are great at writing software. So they're writing software in Silicon Valley or anywhere else in the world. People they're accountants and they're executing their talents every day with their ability to see and use numbers and effectively position numbers and articulate numbers, et cetera, and so on and so forth in pretty much every career. And then there's other people that when you meet them and you hear them talk about what they do, it's less of the words they use and it's more of a feeling. You just know in your heart and soul that this person's in alignment, not just in terms of what they do, but who they are and what they do are connected. What I'm finding in the world today is so many people are disconnected. This is who their identity is, which a lot of people don't know who they are really to begin with. but they're doing something that lies outside of them. And it in no shape or form does it relate to who they are. It's just something they do every single day. I believe, in very simple terms, simple but not easy, that our gift is our ability, our own unique inherent ability to affect another human being in a positive way, in an impactful way, in a way that uplifts them in some shape or form. What makes our gift unique is the lens in which we look through it. And the lens is our own personal narrative, our own personal stories. And that's what I had to do a big deep dive on, or what chose to do a big deep dive on, to really understand who I was and therefore really honor myself and my truth moving forward.
Okay, I know that you've coached, one of the highest, let's say, performing people in the world, like billionaires. So are you saying they come to you, questioning their talent versus gift and feeling unfulfilled, and you basically help them find clarity, even though they've reached the top? Do they still feel like they're unfulfilled? Do they?
Often, not all billionaires and all very wealthy people are unfulfilled, but often when you achieve a certain critical mass of wealth, and you still have this nagging feeling that something's just not quite right, that there's more. And it's less more in money and materialistic items, and it's more in terms of meaning. There is that type of individual that comes to me, and they just can't quite articulate. Then I've never had anybody come to me and say, "Hey, I'm executing my talent. I'm not really honoring my gift. So can you help me identify that?" Maybe a little bit more in recent times, but people are not conscious of that terminology. They're not conscious of the emotion and the ramifications behind, and what lies behind the surface, or what lies behind just under the surface in that regard. They're coming to me sometimes because they know they're off. They're on the wrong path. They know they're off in life. They know that what they're doing is not in alignment with who they are. So they're conscious of that. Other people come to me because they're not conscious of it, but what they are conscious is that there has to be more. There has to be something else for me as an individual. And other people come to me because they want to make sure that they don't fall into the trap. They're not going to be complacent. So what I used to get is clients that came to me with the bad back, going to a chiropractor saying, "Hey, fix me." Now I get people coming to me saying, "Hey, I don't want to be broken to begin with. So I want to make sure that I have the optimum health, or in my case, I'm on the optimal path moving forward, and make sure that I don't fall into these traps." So I'm getting a lot more people who are proactive as opposed to reactive in that space.
Okay, sure. So they're not essentially broken. They just need slight tweaking.
Correct. And by the way, I also have people that come with extreme disconnectedness and kind of they've had a breakdown in terms of their connection with their business. They realize they've been in the wrong industry. They've been running the wrong business for years, marriage breakdown, whatever. I have those. But those people often think they're broken. They actually use the word broken. They actually believe at some level. And most human beings hold at some level that they think at somewhere in their bodies, their physicality, their mindset, and their emotional set, that they're broken. And the reality is then they want to be fixed. But you can't fix somebody who's not broken. And I've never met a human being that's broken. But it doesn't mean that we don't think that way and that we don't hold ourselves and consider ourselves broken as individuals.
Okay. So is a gift essentially purpose, or is it different to that?
I know purpose feels like it's something that you kind of must do. I know it's not the definition of it, but it's almost like, you must do it and you must go and find it. I must find my purpose and find my passion. And it sounds, therefore, it could be under the rock outside the door here, or it could be in under London Bridge, or it could be on the top of the Eiffel Tower, so it feels like it's outside. Also, it could be pertained to your gift. To me, our gift is just our inherent ability to affect other people. And we can do that. And if we do it through the lens of our story, in other words, it's connected to who we are as individuals, it's a more authentic expression of who we are. So it comes from within. But that's the point. The gift already lies within. It's already often dormant within. You don't have to find it. You have to uncover it. And they're two entirely different things. One means I got to go outside and find it. The other one is I got to go inside and uncover it. And they're very, very different approaches. And this is why we have so many people walking the earth today that even are telling themselves what they're doing is making an impact. They're telling themselves what they're doing is their purpose. And yet eventually they run out of steam and they find out that really it wasn't. They'd mixed up purpose with excitement or excitement with purpose. They felt excited about this opportunity, but eventually it ran out of steam. And the reason for that is because they heard a speaker, they read a book, and they took somebody else's variation and explanation of success. They meshed it with their own, and it wasn't authentically aligned. So what I encourage people to do is to define their own level of success. What is that for them? And make sure it's in alignment with who they are and express that daily. So you're living your truth. So you have peace of mind. You close your eyes at night and you can actually sleep comfortably within the confines of your own skin.
Right. Okay. I can see people, thinking right now, what if my gift is not monetizable? Whereas my passion, whereas my talent is. Have you ever had somebody ask you that? Like, what if I can't make money through my gift? What do you do then?
Tons. Well, great. If you can't make money, well then, if you can, you can't. It's irrelevant. I mean, my job and my invitation still stands. Well, that doesn't mean you shouldn't honor it. The fact that we would put money and gift in the same sentence is part of the problem. I had a musician one day say, I said to him, "You play music?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "I didn't know you're a musician." And he said, "I'm not." And I said, "Hang on, you play music, but you're not a musician." He goes, "Oh, I don't get paid to play." And I went, "Since when do you have to get paid to be something?" And I think that's where the dysfunctionality with money comes in, is that we have allowed money to distort our gift. We've allowed money get in the way of our gift. We've allowed money to determine our gift. We've allowed money to give us permission to say this is the path or not. And therefore I think we've given money, we put money on a pedestal and we put our gifts down here. So we're looking up to money and we're not honoring our gifts. So fuck money. I mean, your gift is something that you should want to do free or charge for it. It doesn't really matter, but it's something that I believe needs to be honored. And it's only when you start honoring it do you find ways of monetizing it in ways that perhaps eluded you. So we've never been in a better time in the world, in society, to monetize things that bring us joy. And I actually disagree. I think every single person can monetize their gift, but not every person should.
Right. Okay. And what would you say is the biggest mistake people are making in regards to, honoring their gift other than money?
Well, I think they're not creating the space to uncover it. They've shut that conversation down because they've even integrated money into it. I mean, the amount of people that I meet I know I'm going back to the money thing slightly, but just bear with me for a second, is that someone say, I want to uncover my gift, but I also want to make money doing it. It's like, they're two separate things. They're related, but do you want to uncover what the gift is and then worry about whether you can monetize it later? Or do you want to uncover it conditionally? It's like going to a girl and say, hey, I want to date you as long as you marry me. I want to date you as long as you can provide me with 3 children. It's like, Jesus, give me a break. Will you just relax a second? The pressure to find your purpose, find your talent, find your gift, and make money doing it, and make a difference in the world. It's just overwhelming. So people are rushing through life and they're so busy. That's another thing, is that they're staying so busy. And I had a girl earlier on, and she's got 2 or 3 elements of her life today that are not serving her. And what she wants me to do is help her uncover her passion. Let's just use the word passion because that's what she used. So great. So uncovering your passion is the number one conversation you want to have with me. She says, absolutely. I said, what's the one thing you don't want to discuss with me? She says, my relationship with my husband. Okay. So she's happy to talk about the passion, but not her husband. And I said, what's happening at home? She says, well, I don't love him anymore. Honestly, between you and I, it's over. It has been over for years, but I'm staying in the relationship because, our kids, when they get older, then I'll look at it. And I said, how do you think this affects you? How much energy is that? What is the mental and emotional cost of staying in this relationship? And how is it impeding your ability to even dream and be creative in the context of what you're here to do in a gift space or in a passion space or in a purpose space, whatever you want to call that? She goes, well, I'm not sure. So the point is, she's focusing on the wrong thing. She's focusing on what she doesn't know. And I often ask people is, when you're not sure what you want in the future, look at what you don't want today. So execute on what you do know as opposed to what you don't. So for example, on a really silly, well, it's nothing silly around, it's very serious, but a kind of a silly example of this is somebody might say to me, I really want to find my passion to get out of my shitty job that I absolutely hate, or my business that I hate. I'll say, well, why don't you just focus on getting out of your business that you hate or dislike or that doesn't align with you, and see what happens to the clarity on the other side. Sometimes that requires us to execute and jump out in, like, all out, or sometimes it requires us to make some adjustments. So there's some of the common traits that I find in people who get in their own way, and actually they're looking for clarity, but they're doing the opposite. They're creating complexity.
Right. Are there like...
And so one more thing on that is, the other thing is people don't see a lot of value in themselves. They talk a great game. The words that come out don't show you this. So most people go, God, they have a lot of regard, they have a lot of confidence, or whatever, but they don't have a lot of self-worth. So why would I uncover my gift when I don't believe in who I am, that I don't believe I've got the right to impact other people? I almost don't believe that I have the right to be happy, and I certainly don't have the right to make a big impact and a lasting impact and a legacy in this world.
Mm. So talk to me about goals, Philip, because you've got an interesting view on goals. You don't believe that we should set goals. Am I right in saying that?
If I had to say yes or no, yes, that's true. And the reason for that is traditional goal setting is very intellectual. The majority of people who set goals don't really have a very solid why behind it. In other words, they don't have it connected to their emotion. They have it connected to their intellect. So, for example, someone will say to me, and I can give you so many examples. This is ridiculous. Well, why do you want to, build this business? Well, I want to make enough financial income. I want to be financially free, so then I can go and do what I love. Sounds great. And it's a phenomenal line that feels to me it's been taken off a shelf or off a stage at a seminar. And it's one that I think that people are getting tired of, because what's happening is, in some cases they're achieving those goals and they're successful, but now they're not satisfied. Or in other cases, they're not achieving those goals and they're wondering what's wrong with them. Why can't I achieve a goal like my friend John? What's wrong with me that I can't achieve the sort of wealth that Jim has, et cetera, et cetera? And to me, a lot of goal setting, particularly when you meet people who have this complex metrics to create goals, like goals in 10 areas of life, 3 goals within each area, then they're broken down from 15-year goals to 10-year goals to 5-year goals to 1-year goals. And right now, I know people are switching off straight away going, hang on a second, don't dare take on my goal setting practice that has worked with me for 10 years and is going to continue to work for me. But what happens? What happens if your goal setting metrics and your goal setting strategy is bringing you down a path that you can tick off its successes, but actually it's bringing you down a path that ultimately you're not going to be actually fulfilled? What if that's even possible? And what's the authenticity of the goals that you've set? Like, where do they really come from? Are they coming from society? Are they coming from your parents? Are they coming from expectations? Are they coming from even these overwhelming expectations on ourselves? Because we're so hard on ourselves that we have to be seen to achieve things that are so far beyond what we think we're capable of. And yet sometimes by just living our truth and allowing our gift to shine brings us more joy, and in many cases, money and all the things that we set out to achieve in the first place. So I'm not the anti-goals guy, but goal setting causes so much damage. And also a lot of people set out an intention and a goal and they change. They emerge out of something they're different, and they don't adjust the goals accordingly. Because we're doggedly determined or stubborn that sometimes we set a goal and we have to complete it, sometimes to the detriment of our own personal peace of mind, our state of mind, our emotional state, and in many cases, our physical state.
Okay, but what would you say to people who, set goals because they procrastinate or they feel unmotivated? Do you think they should still not set goals and just follow their gift? Or
if you have to set a goal and keep yourself accountable to do something you don't want to do, you're going down the wrong path. There's a reason you don't do it, because you don't want to do it. Procrastination is, by the way, to me, it's just another way of beating yourselves up. It's a big judgment. The amount of people that I've had saying, hey, I have this business. I want to grow this business. I want to grow a team to support this business. I want to engage with you, Philip, as a coach to keep me accountable through this process. I said, okay, why are you doing this business? Well, did I tell you I want to turn over 25 million? I want to sell the business in 15 years. I want to sell it in 2 years, whatever it happens to be. I go, do you love this business? Well, yeah. Do you love this business? Yes or no? Well, no. I mean, I'm making widgets, so how could I love it? But it's a means to an end. It pays the bills. It gives me leverage. I don't know what else I do, so I might as well do this in the interim, which is all fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not a judgment. But I'm not going to keep you accountable to do something every day that you don't want to do in the first place. I want to keep you accountable in terms of keeping your soul accountable. I want to check in. I want to ask you the questions that no one else wants to ask you. I want to ask you questions that'll piss you off. I want to give you a hug when you want to fight, and I want to give you a kick in the ass when you want to hug. I want to be the guy that stirs the emotion in you, that gets you out of your head, which is a fucking prison in the first place, that keeps you safe, keeps you from feeling, which most people in society don't want to do. I want to get you connected so you can feel the pain and do something about it, not pretend and tell yourself that everything's great on Facebook every single day.
Wow. And do you find you lose clients often?
Absolutely. Well, I don't get clients a lot, if that makes any sense. I don't get clients a lot. I've never used that sentence, has never come out of my mouth actually, but it makes sense to me. I don't get clients a lot. And the reason for that is they're scared. And they say they're scared of me. I often hear people say, but you're very intimidating, you're very scary. And I go, no. I'm not even remotely as scary as the truth. I'm not even remotely scary as what you're capable of doing. I'm not even remotely as scary as the emotion that comes up for you when you think about and stop and start to connect and feel with the disconnection in your life right now. But I tell you one thing, on the other side, the flip side of that, I will get you through it. I am unbelievably, I don't want to use a word that kind of sounds so arrogant and self-serving, but I'm relentless in my pursuit of alignment and for other people. I will believe in people and value them when they don't themselves. And the reason I can do that so effectively with such conviction is because I'm not even looking at their change. I used to think I was the personal growth guy. I was thinking I was the guy that helped you grow off the ice so you could be better on the ice in your businesses, in your profession, in your marriages, in your parenting, and be a better person. I want way more than that. I'm a greedy bastard. I want to serve you. I want to help you grow so you in turn go and grow other people. That's what my vision and that's what my mission has become. It's about affecting people who want to affect change. I want to work with people to help them uncover their gifts so they in turn go and affect other people, unlock their gift and their value in this world. So then I have a tiny, tiny, tiny part to play in a way bigger picture. And it's so bigger than Philip Mckernan that my ego doesn't get a chance to fucking breathe because it's not about me. It's about the people I can help change and transition and get aligned and create more meaning in their lives. But more importantly, it's beyond them. It's their kids, it's their wives, it's their husbands, it's their communities, their organizations. Imagine having a tiny part to play in that. Now that is worth getting out of bed for every single morning. And that's what's evolved in the evolutionary aspect of the work that I do. That's where it's moving for me. It's as opposed to just, and it's a wonderful thing just to have one individual feel better about themselves so they can go and continue to do the work they do every single day. No, there's more to life than that.
Wow. You know, I watched a lot of podcasts with you, and one of the things I noted is how many times the podcast really runs out of thoughts and just, you know, struck with what to say next. And I thought, okay, I'm going to have Philip on. And you're the sort of guy who does really just say it how it is. And I thought, okay, am I going to run out of thoughts? Because I never usually do. But I generally am. How did you, I mean, you've got this level of clarity and intuition, I believe, is just, I've never met somebody who's got this level of intuition. Because I remember you spoke at London Real, and Brian Rose was saying how somebody, you know, answered to you that he felt this way. Somebody said the same, but you just saw straight through that. I mean, how did you develop this level of intuition to be able to see straight through bullshit?
I honestly, I think the answer is well, it's twofold. I know and I don't know. I think there's a part of this I don't know. And there's a part of this I don't want to overanalyze. And there's part of this that people say, Philip, you're tremendously gifted in a particular area. And honestly, that's not for me to say. I mean, the day I start thinking that I have the gift is the day that it should be taken away from me. And if I do have a gift and I'm not religious at all, I would say I'm pretty spiritual, but if I do have a gift, it's on loan. It's on loan for a period of time, and I can either use it hopefully in a really effective, game-changing, positive way, or abuse that, which is very easy to, and then it gets taken away from you automatically anyway. You know, it's gone. The thing I do know is that what I did was I worked on the inhibitors, the things that block that intuition, the things that block me. So what I do with people is I feel what's going on for them. So I don't look at someone and say, okay, he's twitching with his right eye, he's looked up to the earth, so that means psychologically in body language he's lying to me. I don't even look at that stuff, because that to me is I'm not present when I'm too busy analyzing. To me, it's all about connecting and feeling. It's all about out of your head. And I might tap into my head in terms of from a tactical standpoint, or to remember a story, but there's no greater gift you can give to another human being than being as present with them as possible. And I'd love to say I do it all the time. I don't. But when I'm connected, I can literally feel what's going on for another individual. And I can put myself in their situation. And what happens is often we lie to ourselves. So science has shown that we lie to ourselves. They've done all sorts of studies in this. One study I read about recently is and it's men and women. This particular study happened to be women, where they got women to draw a sketch of their bodies, and they drew them. And then they sent these groups of women off, and they said, right, one half the group read about architecture and buildings, the other one read about dating. And they came back and they got the same group of women to sketch their bodies again. And the women that I had read about dating sketched their bodies minimum 20% thinner than they had previously done, and minimum 20% thinner than reality. And the other women, they just basically sketched their bodies exactly the same as they'd done before, and pretty accurate in terms of their assessments. So the science doesn't talk about why they did that. They don't know. The scientists are too busy arguing over why people lie to themselves all the time, and let them argue. I'm curious to know and to dig into the fact that they do. To me, the women that sketched their bodies thinner got too attached to the outcome. They got too attached to, they put themselves in this outcome state, which is a goal-setting state in a sense. Like, what if I met a guy? What if in order to do that, I have to be inauthentic. In order to do that, I have to pretend. In order to do that, I have to wear makeup. In order to do that, I have to... And I say replace makeup with a suit, replace makeup with a story, a car, whatever, is that we put ourselves in these situations. We think we have to be something we're not in order to find someone who loves us from who we really are. The reality is we need to be seen as human beings. So I'm not sure I'm answering your question directly, but to me, it was getting in touch with what are the things that are blocking my intuition. And what blocked my intuition was anger. What blocked my intuition was a lack of value in myself. What blocked in my intuition is not understanding my story. What blocked my intuition was just a number of, so I go into those inhibitors. What are those things that are getting in the way of intuition flowing fluently? People who live in their head too much. There's a reason that we're all heady now, or a lot of people are heady. It's because of so much information, so much so-called connectivity online. But really, it suits us, because as humans, we're not good at feeling. We don't want to feel, because often when we stop and feel, it's painful. But if we have the courage to feel that pain, to sit in that pain, to work through that pain, we can actually address the core issue. So I'm not sure that's answering your question, but that's what's coming up for me right now.
Okay, sure. I've noticed also, whenever you ask, whenever somebody asks you a question, there's always a different answer, because you're literally just answering it really just from your heart straight away, right? I assume so. Yeah, because I've always I don't try, and it's not a strategy. It's just it's whatever I feel. I don't have notes. I didn't ask you for the question. A lot of people say, hey, send me the questions before we have the interview. I have no interest in that. I know I might be better prepared, and I might sound more effective and more sexier, and I might sound more efficient and whatever, but that just doesn't appeal to me. Yeah, because I've noticed over the years, just interviewing guests, a lot of the stories exactly the same. I hear over and over. But with you, you always say, "Oh, let's see what comes out," or this is what just came out. It's a very unique way. So, talk to me about the soul set versus mindset. What is that exactly?
Well, I think we've indirectly kind of covered that. I mean, soul set to me is this ability to. I mean, your intuition is your soul's voice, which I said recently for the first time, and your thoughts is your mind's voice. And mindset is catastrophically overrated, in my personal opinion. I mean, just it's extraordinary to think that we still hold on. We talk about how, how much of the brain that we use as human beings. And depending on who you talk to, we only use 3% of the brain, or maybe we use 10% of the brain. And can you imagine how effective we're going to be when we can tap into 90% of the brain? I mean, God love us, we may as well be dead. I don't know if you ever watched Star Trek, but the Borg is this big square box that flies through space, and they're half human and half machine. In fact, they're probably 75% machine and 25% human. And their sole job is to capture you and assimilate you into their system, into their consciousness or whatever. In other words, that you're not allowed to think and feel for yourself, more importantly. And I believe that's going on right now. I think there's this huge movement in society to assimilate people from this individuality into this collective. And while I appreciate and I believe that we as humans should be looking at how we can affect, not just our own backyard, but the world, I want people to do that in the space of individuality, not following other people's dreams and aspirations and goals and the expectations they set for us. So to me, the difference is uncovering and trusting the intuition that we were born with, that we have inherently within us, that we have an abundance within us, that we trusted implicitly as a child. We trusted implicitly till we were about 10 or 12 years old, and then we started questioning it. Because you know what? We wanted to fit in. And when you want to fit in, individuality and your own intuition doesn't really match, because intuition wants you to hold true to who you are. Intuition wants to guide you in a particular direction. Intuition wants you to follow your truth. Your mind, which wants to override that, is saying, hey, buddy, yeah, that sounds all cool and sexy, but why don't you come over to this gang because they're cool. They're doing some really cool shit, and they'll like you and love you. And your brain, your mind taps into that insecurity within your soul. It taps into that gap in the middle. It taps into that uncertainty that you have. And it manipulates that to basically get to a point where you stop trusting your intuition and start moving towards this intellectual approach, which is, I'm telling you right now, the more intellectual we become, the more dead we're becoming. So to me, I hope that journey, the scientific journey of uncovering how to use more of our brain, stops and goes away, and we start to appreciate and realize that actually the answer is not intellect, it's intuition. And the world is full of people asking intellectual questions for emotional challenges. And if you dig deep enough, whether it comes to the game of golf or anything else, we still think it's mindset. But if you dig deep enough with any professional golfer, any professional athlete, it's not mindset, it's emotion. It's emotion. The reason Tiger Woods became the world's #1 golfer is because of emotion. He has a mechanically brilliant golf swing, no doubt. He's got a mindset in terms of that allows him to, to focus and to be, harden himself and to practice and to be disciplined. That's the hard part of it, and that's where it can be effective. But emotionally, he did it because he wanted to be loved by his father. He's never come out and said it, but ultimately, if you read anything and you watch him and you feel what's going on for him, it's obvious. So we're so much emotional beings, and we've allowed a virus into ourselves that's telling us and overriding us. I've never said most of this before in my life. It's just this is what's coming up for me right now. And so this virus is in us and it's overriding the intuition. And I can tell you right now, I had a $3 million conversation with a client a couple of weeks ago. And this was a decision to do something or not. And it was going to cost them $3 million. And at the end of 95% of the conversation was all about who they were as an individual, reminding them where they've come from and the complexity they have in their life and the lack of satisfaction they had when they met me and the work that we've done. And then I said, okay, right, we've got 5 minutes left in our phone call or whatever it was. Hey, let's get back to the decision. What do you want to do? And they said, don't need to discuss it, I know. There's absolutely no way I'm doing this deal. While it makes sense on paper, it's going to bring me back to the place that I wasn't serving me in the first place. So when we take a step back from the strategy and the tactics, and we just dig into who we are, how we feel, who we want to be, forget about what we want. Everyone's setting goals. This is what I want in 5 years. Who do you want to be in 5 years? That's a much more exciting, promising prospect. And it also leads to the question as well, okay, great, but who am I now? And most people have a huge identity crisis in the world today. They have no idea who they are, and therefore no idea who they could become. So what you do in that space is you grab hold of something, because we love a little bit of certainty. we grab hold of goals and dreams and aspirations primarily belong to other people other than ourselves. And we achieve them and we chase them and we go after them. And sometimes it works. A lot of the time it doesn't.
Wow. How many percentage of people on this planet do you believe are operating at that level?
Unfortunately, I'd say in Western world, like I've traveled to 80 countries around the world extensively, and I've interviewed a lot of people. I've worked with a lot of people in different countries. And I hate to give a stat because I think sometimes, you know, in some of these less developed countries, and I say that in inverted commas because I think developed is all relative as well. Economically developed, perhaps. But in terms of emotionally developed, I think sometimes they're miles ahead of us. I think we could give them aid in terms of food and water and ability to grow crops, and they could give us incredible aid in their ability to help us understand how to feel and how to connect and how to love and how to care and how to let go of the things that we think we want. And I think it could be this mutual trade. But in the world today, the softer skills such as connection and intuition and that feeling of knowing as opposed to I think I know, knowing, that feeling, that unequivocal, incredible feeling that we all experience or have experienced of, I don't care what anyone says, I know I need to do this. It's not a case of, hey, I think I know. That knowing, that certainty, and it's not cockiness, it's not arrogance, it's beyond stunning. And we've all tapped into that at some point. People call it flow, call it whatever you want to. I think they could give us that in abundance and we could give them other things in abundance, but that's not sexy and it's not cool. It will be. Fast forward 20 years from now, I promise you, I absolutely promise you the world will be turned on its head, because we're going to get to such a pain point where we're going to realize that mindset and goal achievement and all these sort of things haven't served us to date. Therefore, they're not going to serve us in the future, and there has to be a better way. And I think the better way is letting go of what we've been doing historically and take the pieces that do work and do something different. In the corporate world, in our individual world, I mean, the corporate world is starting to wake up to what I talk about. And years ago, they wouldn't go near me because they were saying, like, why would I bring him into my corporation? You can't measure this shit, so why point bring? I said, yeah, I don't want to work with you if you can't. If you want to help your people off the ice, but you want to measure it, it's conditional. Saying, hey, I know we care about our people. I mean, these are corporations and companies that go around and say, hey, our number one thing is our people. I go, great. And I said to a guy recently, I said, that's your number one, you know, important value or whatever, principle or whatever is your people. He goes, absolutely. I said, great. What have you done for your people in the last 12 months? He goes, and Mckernan, I knew you'd ask me that question. We had PowerPoint training, we've had sales training, we've had this training and that training, everything else. We've spent X amount of dollars. I said, let me ask you another question. What have you done for your people in the last year to help them off the ice in their marriages, in their own skin, in their financial situation, with their relationship and their psychology towards money, or anything else, without needing to measure the bottom line effect on the business? You could have pushed him over with a toothpick. He just couldn't. He couldn't come up with anything. But he was shocked at the question. And I said, what we need to move to is a place where we actually care about our people and start caring about them off the ice unconditionally. And when you're not looking for something in return, when you're not giving to receive, you're just giving. What do you honestly think is going to happen? What's going to happen is you're going to get more engagement. You're going to get more loyalty. You're going to get more caring, love, connection. Productivity, ironically, better sales, better profitability. It's all going to give you what you want. But unfortunately, we're so scarce sometimes. And we're approaching such an intellectual, but I can't possibly spend money or time or energy on my people unless I know it affects the bottom line. And the same goes to internal relationships, intimate relationships, the same principle. We have this scarcity and a need for control, which shows us how out of control we are, because the need for security is driven by one thing, not smartness. It's driven by insecurity. The need for security is driven really ultimately emotionally deep down by one thing and one thing only, and that is insecurity.
Wow. So tell me more about, firstly, I just want to say when I set it up, this YouTube channel, I honestly was quite clueless to what sort of message I wanted to spread out there. But I just knew I just wanted to send something out there, and I didn't know which way it's going to go, and I just did it, and I contributed. I can totally relate in regards to that corporate thing, because there are so many companies out there. I don't want to mention any because I've worked for them who say, yeah, we care about the people. And, we've been to seminars where they mention level 1, level 2, which is about basically giving and you accepting it back. Level 3, which is basically about just giving, not expecting back. Basically, the companies adopt the level 3 model, but they don't actually practice it. They're still looking at the bottom line figures, as you say. And, I created this YouTube channel without any sort of financial, let's say, model. And it has just unfolded. And yeah, I just want to say it's just incredible amount of things that can just unfold from just really following what your intuition is saying.
But what do you do? And that doesn't make sense.
What do you mean?
I'm being sarcastic, okay? I'm putting my voice on as if this is somebody listening to us having this conversation. But how can you do that? That sounds so fluffy. I did a documentary recently, or I'm doing a documentary, and someone says, oh, what's your distribution? The number one thing is distribution. Before you make the film, find out your distribution. I said, no, I'm not going to do that because it's going to skew the way I produce and direct and put this documentary together. I don't give a shit if my granny is the only one that watches it. I'm going to make the documentary the way I want to make it, as the most authentic version of this message that I can create. Is it going to be good or bad or indifferent? I don't know. But the minute I go into distribution, I'm going into tactics, I'm going into finances, I go to whatever. It's a great consideration, and it should be secondary. So you do your podcast in your case, you do your YouTube thing, and then at some point you take a step back and say, okay, where is it going? And you bring in a little bit of strategy and a bit of tactics and a bit of that. But the problem is that most people go the opposite way. They're going in with, okay, how's this going to make money? How's it going to be monetized? How's it going to do this? How's it going to do that? What about the distribution? And what happens is a lot of those technical pieces then start to develop the podcast and the nature of the interviews and the guests and how you are. And therefore, it can, not always, but it loses its authenticity. It loses its capacity to touch people intuitively and intellectually. And that's the problem with the world today is like some people, like I'll set up a podcast assuming I can do this. I'll set up a podcast assuming it nets me this amount of money. I'll set up a podcast assuming I can sell X amount of advertising. Well, you really don't want to set it up to make a difference in the world you're doing it conditionally. Does that make sense? So I admire you deeply, deeply for what you're doing and what you've done. And I trust, honestly, if you keep doing it that way, you will end up winning out. You may not have the biggest bank balance in the world, but when people look in your eyes, they go, fucker looks happy. He's got shit together. He's got a wealth that you cannot buy with money. And that's the thing that I have. Honestly, is there bad days in my life? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Am I the wealthiest guy in the world? No. Am I as big as other speakers and everything? No. But I'm telling you, I've got wealth that you cannot buy off me. And I promise you, I ain't selling it either. And I didn't have it for years when I was chasing nothing other than the financial. And there's nothing wrong with money. Money's not evil here. Money is not the problem. It's our relationship to money is what is causing havoc. I have clients that are incredibly wealthy, and I have clients that have no money or little or no money, and it's the same principle. It's their relationship to money is the problem, as opposed to money itself. It's not the issue. It's the relationship and how we relate to the money and how we allow the money relate to us. That's the problem, which I won't get into today, but that's a whole different conversation.
Okay. So as you mentioned about the documentary, so has it all been finished now, or like recording wise, or?
Literally, I have the first, literally in the last 24 hours, I received what they call the final cut. So it's basically the full feature-length documentary, rough cut. So it's basically just pasted together pretty much how we want the story to flow. No music, nothing. So I would say somebody who probably knows what they're talking about might disagree with this. I've never done a documentary, so bear with me. But I'm saying I reckon we're probably about 80% of the way there.
Okay. And so how are you going to, basically market it? Are you going to just let it just spread naturally, or are you going to? Well,
and back to what I said earlier on, initially we didn't have a plan. And then what we did was we want the documentary to be, the true essence and the intent behind it to be honored. And then we start to look at, what are we going to do with this and how are we going to do it? So we have a few different levels or potential avenues of distribution. Number one is iTunes in no particular order, because it's the most well-known out there. It'll eventually go to Netflix if we, assume we can get it on. There's no red flags there it's where films tend to go afterwards. And, no disrespect to Netflix, but that's their model. So they tend not to get, unless they produce their own content. So it'll go there hopefully afterwards, and that's where it'll get a lot of eyes on the message, but you don't necessarily make revenue from it. And there's a platform that many people have heard about, but not as many, as FMTV. FMTV it's basically for Food Matters Television, and Food Matters and Hungry for Change were two food documentaries made by a friend of mine in Australia, and he saw an opportunity to become the health and the Netflix for the health and wellness industry. And he has given us a verbal agreement, and I say verbal because I'm sure he wants to see the documentary before he puts it on his platform. We'll sell it directly, so we will launch in the next month or so, where people can actually download it directly and at a minimal fee. So that's our kind of and we'll probably send a hard copy CD because there's still people that want it. So that's our kind of distribution channel and avenue right now.
What was the main reason for really filming this, and what's the core message behind it?
The core message is when you give unconditionally, you grow exponentially. I mean, that's the essence. And I don't think it's a new, I'd love to tell you it's a new concept. It's not. I think how we come at it is refreshing, and perhaps we're looking at giving in a new, what we call a new world way, as opposed to an old world way. Unfortunately, the old world way of just writing a check and assuming that you get the same kind of result, I don't think you do. And it's been proven scientifically that when you give of yourself, when you give of your physical self, your story, your person, like physically hold on to kids' hands and orphans and different things, that there's something that shifts inside of you. So it started, without boring you with all the details, when I went to Sri Lanka many years ago, a year after the tsunami, and I spent a day in an orphanage there. And honestly, I'd love to tell you I was in touch with how it affected me. The challenge was I knew it had shifted me, but I didn't know how. So years later, I created a retreat called Give and Grow, where we'd go and work with young kids in orphanages in different parts of the world: Peru, Guatemala, India last year, Peru again later this year. We'd work with them for 3 or 4 years. We didn't bring gifts. We didn't give money. We just played with them, engaged with them, held their hands, put our arms around them, played soccer with them. And these young kids need to know that they matter, even for a day. And when we did that, the shifts in people was evident. But no volunteer experience sits you down and really does a deep dive in a very safe, very well-crafted way of why. How has it impacted you? Why has it impacted you? And then more importantly, say, okay, what does this mean for the rest of your life? So I've had very successful people. I've had people on paper and in business, and I've had other people who want to make an impact, and one guy who runs a podcast and different, and they come in this experience, they give, and they start to see that they have value, and they're not taking out their credit card, they're not taking out their checkbook, they're not bringing a bag of toys, it's just them. So it's very vulnerable that but what am I going to do with the kids? Like, I get John over there, he's got a great person. I get the guy over there because he can play soccer. I get her because she's great at playing hand clap games and everything else. But like me, why? But, let me open my computer because I'm really good at software. No. This is not about your talent. This is about your gift. It's about your ability to connect. And what we do is we just connect as human beings. And it is incredible what you learn about yourself. And then we sit around as a group, we ask questions, we do little exercises, and I do one-to-ones. And some of the discoveries that people have made about themselves in terms of their value, in terms of how this relates to their life, and ultimately their gift and their ability to execute their gift and impact other people in the future is incredible. So some of the shifts we've seen and transitions we've seen from people when they've come home has been giving up their job, changing their business, shifting relationships, et cetera, and it really kind of unlocked something. So that's where the documentary, the idea came from, and we decided why not try and capture this very difficult on film and invite people all over the world who read this, who watch this, to choose to step in and give of themselves in a way that they've never done before.
Wow, that's beautiful. So I'm going to ask you a bit of a deep question.
You mean it hasn't been deep already? Holy shit, what's coming next?
So, Phil, you've got, you're coming from such a level of giving that, by the time, say, your life has, come to an end, this lifetime, what sort of change would you have liked to have made on this planet?
I go to my kids with that question. there's a part of me that feels I don't want to go there in the context of my work, because I think it makes it a little bit about me, a little bit too much about me. My work, I think probably one of the biggest shifts I've made is I've stopped making this work about me. And people who want to shoot the messenger and take me out or dislike me for whatever reason, will accuse me of being all sorts of things. But those who have the courage to actually step into my work know me for who I really am. And I'm a guy who cares, beyond the realms of just so deeply for people and what they're capable of. I think for me, I go to my children, and I would like to create an environment, as opposed to change them, but I'd like to create an environment where they believe change is possible. I think that we bring our kids up in these environments that we want to give them hope. We want to give them this belief they can do everything, but we actually do the complete opposite, because what we don't do is we don't do it ourselves. We actually tell them later on in life how they should and should not live their lives, but we're not prepared to make the change themselves. The amount of people that come to me and want to make a slight or significant transition in their life that don't do it for the following reasons is staggering. A lack of clarity about what it is, a lack of money to do it, and a lack of desire to upheaval their children or run the risk of putting their children at risk in any capacity. They're the three core reasons people don't change. Number one is they know exactly what they want to do for the rest of their lives. They just don't want to see it, and they're getting in their own way. And that's where I come in. I can uncover it probably better than anybody. Number two is money. If your reason is money, or your reason is time, for that matter, those two things, you are not digging deep enough. It's never money. Money is never the challenge. That's the surface challenge. It's never the real core issue. People say, but if I'd start a podcast and I'd give up my job if I had the money. No. That's never the reason. I realize it's a practical thing that we need to consider, but it's never the core reason. Really what you're doing is you're saying that I'd do it if I believed in myself, if I felt I had value in this world, really, if you break it down. And the third one is children. And I have something I said in a podcast recently, and I'm going to say it here again, is that if you're going to use your children as a reason, or dare I say an excuse not to grow, not to live your own dreams, your own aspirations, that's fine. I've just got one question. Have you asked your children, is that okay? Because I don't believe my children came into this world to give me reasons not to grow. My children came into this world to inspire me to do things that are often, in some cases, beyond what I can imagine. So I can, in turn, inspire them to know that no matter what happens in their lives, that they don't have to put up with the status quo, that they can change, that they can follow their own path, that they can not just live their dreams, but they can find that courage. I don't want to be lecturing my kids in 20 years' time saying, hey, that relationship's not working out, get out of it. Hey, if that job's not working out, get out of it. That business not working, get out of it. Because that's what it is. It's a lecture. I'm telling them. But internally, whether they use the words or not, they're going, but Dad, you didn't do it. So they're rolling their eyes to heaven, where if I'm a beacon of inspiration, or I'm a person who actually executes on this, and I'm a person who actually follows his heart and has the courage to change, I trust that I'm inherently leaving that belief with them. And to me, that's the change I really want in the world, or that's what I'd like to leave the world. I'd like to do that for a lot of people, but if I only do it for my kids, that to me is a job well done.
Wow. Okay. So Philip, I suppose we'll wrap up there. For people, for my followers, where would you like them to, go to get an essence of what you're really about?
I think what I want for your followers is I'd like them to go to the mirror and ask themselves what they're all about and who they really are, and do that deep dive. If some of them feel, however, they need some guidance and support in doing that process, then absolutely, I'm here to help. And I suppose just the main website, philipmckernan.com, and I appreciate that. philipmckernan.com, and there's lots of other websites and stuff, but I won't bore you with all the details. But there's free resources. They don't have to buy anything. They can choose to step in some capacity if they wish, but that would be the best place to start.
Also, guys, Philip's got a YouTube channel. Definitely subscribe there. So, Philip, just want to say once again, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm speechless, and I'm sure my audience are as well. So, thank you.
I appreciate it. It's an honor to be here. I mean, I just, I appreciate what you're saying, but to have somebody in any part of the world reach out and ask me to go on their show to share with the people they care and love and respect my message or what I believe is an incredible honor. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, as always, follow your heart and take action. Speak to you soon.
We're masters of two things as human beings: complicating our lives and then justifying why we do it. We're brilliant at it. We're so good at it, it's unbelievable. It gives us reasons not to grow. It gives us reasons not to stretch ourselves. It gives us reasons to stay in our box. So what I'd like you to do is to be open to a different conversation today. Okay? Just a different conversation, a different way of thinking, a different way of feeling, and a different way of living. With my work, when you want to fight, I'll give you a hug. And when the day you want a hug, I'll kick you in the ass. It just could have been a moment. It could have been a smile. It could have been a hug. It could have been a conversation. It could have been an event. It could have been a group of people. And I'd like you to consider, what are the happiest days of your life? I'd like you to identify minimum 2, please. If asked you to write down a list of the crappiest days that you've had in your life, people will be asking for more paper. But yet you ask people to identify some of the happiest days, it's not necessarily that easy. Your story, your own individual story, there is nothing more magnificent in this world than your story. Yours and yours and yours and yours. Your story is the most magnificent story in the world because it's yours.
For me, Philip's talk was literally life-changing. And his delivery, I mean, it helps that he's a funny guy and he's dynamic and he's charismatic and he's charming. It helps, but that doesn't take away from the core of what he was saying. And it really translated through. Like, for me, that was an amazing, amazing talk, an amazing speech. It was an experience. That's the best way to describe it. It was more than a speech. It was more than a talk. It was an experience, an amazing experience.
They talk about caring about their people. And here's the test. I'll say to them, so you want me to come in? I'll say, well, why don't I come in and help your team develop everything off the ice? In their relationship with themselves, their relationship with their husbands or wives, their relationship with their children. And they're going, yeah, that sounds really cool, that's really cool, yeah, fantastic. And then I'll leave. They go, well, how are we going to be able to gauge? And I said, gauge what? How it impacts the bottom line. And I said, well, you don't care about your people. You're going to conditionally develop your people on the assumption and the hope and the need to drive your bottom line. You don't fundamentally care about your people. If you can give your people support, if you can help your people grow at the fundamental level, do you not think that when they are on the ice, you're going to get more engagement, more loyalty, more, just team, not building, but team kind of deepening? Do you not think that automatically you're going to have profitability, productivity is not going to go up? Do you not? But that's not why you give it. Unconditionally, put your arms around them and recognize that they are a wonderful asset. And if you help them build value in themselves, I promise you they'll build value in your life. But you don't do it for that.
I just watched Philip's talk and I was just moved. I was blown away. I could probably go on and on. Just the impact that he made from his presentation, I think that I'm not the only one that feels this way. I think that it resonated with everybody in the room. It was like, wow.
I'm not trying to be condescending. People often mix up my passion with, and they think it's arrogance. Maybe it is, maybe it is. I'm not trying to be obnoxious. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to those people who are legitimately sitting there searching for a product to put their name on. But at the same time, I'm going to give you a nudge to that edge. Is it really a lack of clarity? Or are you just scared shitless of finding the product because you don't want to fail?
I've had the pleasure of listening to speakers all around the world, the likes of Richard Branson, the Dalai Lama, so I put him right up there at the top. And I think there's 2 reasons why. One, Philip is probably one of the best storytellers that I've ever heard on stage. And the stories he tells always allows the crowd to relate to him. And then through those stories, he has a phenomenal skill set of hooking the emotion of everybody in the crowd.
But the biggest challenge for me was I didn't believe I was good enough. Who's going to listen to me? I don't have an education, I'm dyslexic. I'm not particularly good enough in my own skin. And I gave myself all that self-talk. And 4 years ago, I pulled the trigger. And now I have the honor and the privilege of working with people in not just Ireland, but all over the globe to help them gain clarity in their lives. This is not me trying to sell my business, talk about me. It's trying to impress upon you again that if you really want something, you can achieve it.
He is raw, he is direct, he says things that you don't want to hear,
but those things are the things that you need to hear.
Where's your daughters? Same time or different days, different years? Okay, great. Pick one daughter. Which was the best? Okay, this might be recorded. I won't ask you to do that. This gentleman here. Jumping off a plane. Okay, we need to talk later on, okay? This gentleman here. Running with bulls. Okay, this lady here. Son said, I love you, mommy. Okay, so here's the interesting thing is that most of these, and what you'll find is probably 95% of them, if you go around the room with everybody, are relating to relationships with self or relationships with other people. When you shift somebody's value, they're not going to want to have to feel that they need to get up and go to the gym. They're going to want to go to the gym. They're going to want to eat better. They're going to want to nurture their bodies. You shift the needle of value, everything else shifts. And then what we do is we get clear on what it is we want to do personally, who we want to be, not what we want. How do we want to be remembered? What is my legacy? What do I want to be remembered when my kids put me 6 foot under the ground, burn me to dust and sprinkle it over the beach? And then you realign your business, create a new business, or change your current business to support that. And what you'll find is often it's the things that we don't have in our lives that we give a shitload of power to. I meet people who are single and they really, really deep down don't believe they're going to be happy until they meet somebody. I'm working with some of the wealthiest men and women in the world. I'm working with men and women who have no money and are trying to be the wealthiest in the world. And the dysfunctionality, dare I say it, or unhealthy relationship that I see people having with money is controlling much of their life. And I'm here to talk about making money, but not at the cost of your happiness. Not at the cost of meaning in your life. The amount of people I meet all over the globe who will believe in God or their God like that, who will walk this world for 20, 30, 40, or 50 years never believing in themselves. Don't be one of those. Please don't be one of those. Because you may not feel you deserve it right now, but you know what? The world needs it right now. Thank you.